The Brandon Peters Show may contain explicit language and detailed plot points. For more information on the show, stay tuned to the end of the episode.
It's the summer of 93 at 30.
But the Brandon Peters Show and the continued adventures of the summer of 93 at 30 series, a weekend by weekend look at the movies released during the summer of 1993, as well as their full-on pop culture experience. Returning again, another week, another year, Scott Mendelson from The Wrap.
Every week it's the same old thing. I've got to get out of here. I've got to get out of here.
And wherever we go, he'll be 2 steps behind. From We Live Entertainment, Variety, Why So Blue, the host of Out Now with Aaron and Abe, Aaron Neuwirth.
Who needs a podcast when a podcast can be broken?
Oh, hello, guys. How are you?
Great.
I'm doing well.
This is when we're doing summer of 93 at 30. This was one where I was like, okay. And then we added Aaron to it. And now this was not the one I was looking forward to doing this episode. You'll find out why at the end. I'm holding off.
Because we're right and you're wrong?
Because I can just enjoy something and you two have a problem with it. All right. Anyways.
And then the world. But yeah,
yes, we're going to war over Once Upon a Forest, by the way.
Once Upon a Forest, the childhood treasure. But before we get to all that, we'll do what we always do. We'll begin with the news.
When I wake up, don't you know I'm gonna be the man who brings the news to you.
Pippen runs down the lane, dumps it out the horse, Paxton for 3. Yeah! Yeah! Hits the 3 and 10 seconds left, and the Bulls lead 99-98.
On June 14th, Ruth Bader Ginsburg is nominated to the United States Supreme Court by President Bill Clinton.
I wonder if that goes through.
No wonder.
I hope that story has a happy ending.
Yeah. Hold on, Scott. Just hold on. You'll find out through all the years of holding on. June 16th, Ken Griffey Jr. slugs his 100th career home run in Seattle. On June 18th, more baseball Expos. Remember them? That was a team. They aren't anymore. But Dennis Martinez on the team is the 92nd Major League Baseball pitcher to win 200 games.
Good for him.
More sports.
Wow.
Big week of sports. And then June 20th, the Chicago Bulls become the first team since the legendary Boston Celtics of the 1960s to win 3 consecutive titles with a 99-98 victory in Game 6 over the Phoenix Suns, led by Charles Barkley. The MVP was Michael Jordan for a 3rd straight year. We'll get more news.
Obviously.
Well, this is just to begin. This is the best news of Michael Jordan that we'll have this summer. Just saying. If you know what happens, you know what happens. This is the happy times for Michael Jordan this summer. Also, we only have like sports this week. So U.S. Open's men's golf to overshadow the Bulls win here. Lee Jansen plays sub 70 golf all 4 rounds to tie tournament scoring record and win the first of his 2 Open titles, 2 strokes ahead of Payne Stewart. That's how they say. Okay. Now golfing, Payne. He had socks, right? Was that his thing? Can't remember.
Yes.
Anyways, yeah, he was a socks guy. Yep. All right. We move on to our notable deaths of the week. Cartoonist Vincent T. Hamlin, Scarf and Lina Desire Vera, James Benton Parsons, the first African-American federal judge, passed away. That's where Ruth Bader Ginsburg comes into play, right? And the author of The Lord of the Flies, William Golding, passed away. And then
was he bashed in the head with a rock and thrown off a cliff?
Yes. Didn't get the details, but
Fair
we can
enough.
only assume. All right. Birthdays this week. Super Bowl MVP Cooper Kupp. The daughter of Gretchen and Randy, Alice Ann Newman, was born. And South Korean actor Park Bo-gum was born this week. So that's our news this week. A lot of sports and some Ruth Bader Ginsburg.
The news.
And we will move on to our first film, one cherished in all our hearts, our memories, one that we get mad when it goes back into the vault all the time. I'm talking about Once Upon a Forest.
From the creator of An American Tail comes a musical, magical adventure that could only happen once upon a forest. It's an animated classic. Absolutely delightful. Children will love it. Featuring the voices of Michael Crawford, Broadway's legendary Phantom, and the fabulous Ben Vereen. Once Upon a Forest. Rated G. Starts Friday at theaters everywhere.
Directed by Charles Grosvenor, written by Mark Young and Kelly Ward, on a story by Ray Lambert, starring, or is it Lambert? Don't know. Starring Michael Crawford, Ben Vereen, Ellen Blaine, Elizabeth Moss. Welcome to the film world. Benji Gregory, Janet Waldo, and Will Estes. A young mouse, mole, and hedgehog risk their lives to find a cure for their badger friend, like a badger, not the friend that was just annoying them the whole time. Waldo, who's been poisoned by men. All right, so this is a Hanna-Barbera production. Music was done by James Horner. Somebody was making an effort here. I'll start. This movie, I started like some of the, like, I don't remember. I was like, what the hell is Once Upon a Forest? To look it up, find it, and start watching. I'm like, well, these characters are looking familiar, but I don't know why. Like, I don't think I'd ever seen this movie. And then I got into this whole, I found out they were, Long John Silver's had the tie-in for this, and they had these straw toppers with these characters. So I'm like, well, I don't think that's it. It wasn't like a Happy Meal. It was Long John Silver's. The VHS tape for the movie included a sneak preview of the Page Master. I wasn't that interested in that, so I was like, I don't know. But this thing, got some animation, but this is like in the long range of forgettable late 80s, early 90s cartoons for me. Like, I'm not engaging. I watched it a few days ago and I'm already struggling to remember things about it. It's not quite a musical, but has a couple musical asides to it at times. I don't know. Aaron, what'd you think of this one?
I very much got a sense of deja vu while watching it, so I'm very much convinced that I've probably seen it more than once, because it felt too familiar to me to think that I only saw it once in passing. So I don't know if I had the VHS of it. Very possible. I had a lot of VHSs back in the day, or if I just rented it and watched it a bunch or something. That doesn't make me think I liked it, but it felt very, very familiar, and that was the most interesting thing about watching this movie. Yeah, it's got colors, and there's certainly voice actors that did voice acting. When it said Ben Vereen on the credits, I was like, ooh, that was the extent to that. I do think the James Horner score is good.
Yeah.
For, a 68-minute movie. It's like, well, that's working for you. The animation is Hanna-Barbera, so I mean, it's nothing revolutionary. It's just more like, well, they did it. I'm the guy that comes down on Ferngully because it's a bad movie. So this movie doesn't have anything going for it as far as, nature and man and telling stories about what it is to band together as animals that love each other and friendship and whatnot. There's just nothing really here. It just kind of exists as a thing for kids to stare at for a while.
Right.
And then it ends, and then they put on it again or something else. Preferably from Hanna-Barbera, presumably, but this did not kick off the 90s wave of Hanna-Barbera animated movies. I believe it's the last attempt by Hanna-Barbera to make a movie, actually. So So I'm gonna say mixed.
Yeah, and didn't they do a Jetsons movie in the 90s too? They tried
90,
Yes, before this, I believe.
okay.
Might say before, yeah.
And
I'm pretty sure this is like the last Hanna-Barbera movie.
Yeah. And Scott, this kind of piece of it reminds me of like the idea behind, we did Secret of Nim last summer for summer of '82, which has much more memorable and engaging animation to it, but it was also a story of like these little creatures, animals or whatever, and man doing something that affects them. So it kind of tie in there. But what did you think of Once Upon a Forest?
I'm pretty sure I have seen this at some point in time as well. Maybe like when our teachers were felt like putting on a movie for whatever reason. This is the kind of movie you might watch on one of those wheelie TVs. Yeah. Anyway,
that's the one they'd have.
The AV Club, man. We had we at least got American Tail.
We had good movies. We watched movies in school. Like I watched Rocky.
I was amused to see Elizabeth Moss's name in this for a couple of reasons. First of all, it's her second movie. Second of all, even at this very young age, she is immediately typecast as the punching bag. As someone who's sort of become the Jennifer Connelly of television, which all of her projects are filled with misery, suffering, and self-flagellation. Even in this otherwise irrelevant children's cartoon, she gets poisoned and spends the entire film near death in a coma. So there you go. Started from the beginning. The other thing is just blew my mind about 3 years ago is when you watch the trailer to The Invisible Man, which is excellent, by the way. My thought was, this kind of reminds me of that Batman the Animated Series episode where you have the abusive ex-husband who's stalking his ex-wife and their daughter. And, he basically is a psychotic scientist who makes an invisible man suit and causes trouble. And to my shock, someone chimes in, is like, oh, Elizabeth Moss did the voice of the daughter in that show, which of course just, holy shit. What were the chances of that? If I'm rambling about an otherwise unrelated digression, it's because I honestly don't have much to say about this picture. It is a very forgettable cartoon. The characters are unmemorable. They're overly chipper and generically frantic. It's great that it's about saving the environment, but that was, again, this was the 90s. This is back when the bad guys were people that wanted to destroy the environment. Yeah, they weren't like complicated people that wanted to destroy the world to save the environment. And as much as I enjoy the complexity, I wonder if, as a populace, we were too stupid to get that, but I digress. I have nothing particularly thoughtful to say about this film. It's a 70-minute movie. It came and went, and it wasn't exactly Hanna-Barbera going out with a bang.
Amazon got like $12 from us because so we have nothing to say.
Yeah.
That's I mean, this movie makes like All Dogs Go to Heaven look like it's like the Little Mermaid of its time. Like at least I remember I saw that movie. I remember it. I can tell you the poster. I remember that at least having some energy to it. This has just nothing. It's like I said, it can't even be a musical, right? Like that would do something, but yeah.
And for what it's worth, the movie comes out in the summer of '93. It's 20th Century Fox, and again, the distribution deal, blah blah blah. And 4.5 years later, they're come up with Anastasia. Like, okay, we're gonna try now.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a not. I know I've been saying this a lot because it's a nothing burger.
Anastasia pays off though, right? That's like somewhat of a hit.
Which one?
Anastasia.
Yes, it's a solid performer.
It's a hit.
That's Don Bluth.
It leads to Titan AE.
Titan AE rules.
But it flops terribly, even though it's a pretty good movie.
Yeah. I mean, so was Atlantis. Treasure Planet never did anything for me, but I digress. I prefer my Treasure Planets with. I prefer my Treasure Island stories with Muppets. Thank you very much. But anyway, this film is. I had forgotten about it to the extent that I even knew it in the first place. I will probably never think about it again.
We're recording on a Thursday night. I watched it on Monday, and I'm struggling to like. I took notes, but like not much. I'm just like I don't. It's just
I can tell you all about it. There's
movie
just none
happens.
of,
Like
none of the
what's it?
sentences I would say are interesting.
Yeah, nothing's interesting here. It's like there's no like character that's like, oh, you remember G. Willikers? He was good. Like, no, it's not even that. Like, you remember that one too? No, the James Horner score.
No.
That's us pulling for compliments.
I'm not humming it, but like as I was listening to it, it sounded good. Like
I did hear some stuff that I think got used other places. Like
for sure.
there was some things that they got
reviews
pulled
today.
from this. Yeah. But yeah, this is a quite forgettable movie. Like beyond, like there's a lot. Like if you weren't like Disney was on their comeback kick at this time, and if you weren't them, there was nothing else.
With a cushy June release like this.
Yeah, they tried. But you know, instead of going to this movie, people probably stayed home and watched TV.
The fans are calling you another one, Barney. The fans are idiots.
Give me a C.
Who sent you here?
Give me an O. Give me an A-C-H.
This is what I call a moment.
What's that spell?
I want to have a baby.
What's that spell? What's that spell? Oh, Tuesdays on ABC.
Which over here on the Nielsen ratings, this is a quick one here this week because the top 4 spots here are the NBA Finals. The top watch thing was the post game show at Game 6 after they won. Game 6 was number 2. Game 4 was number 3, and Game 5 was number 4. That's kind of confusing to say. One of those games I remember I remember I was in Florida on summer vacation with my parents. And my dad and I were in the hotel lobby and watched one of the games went to triple overtime, and the Suns won the game. They just kept going at it, so we stayed up late in our hotel watching that. I believe we were going to like Disney and then went to Sarasota or something. It was like some summer vacation. But I remember watching that with my father. Triple overtime game, couldn't believe it. And like the hotel, like we were in the lobby watching because they had like a big screen, and then like we watched the game from the start, and then like people just kept building as the overtimes went, and it was kind of a fun experience. So I was actually I was like, I kind of like to see Barkley win this one. He's really playing hard, even though I was like I liked Michael back in the day, as every damn kid did.
Charles wasn't terrible.
He wasn't terrible. Dan Marley and KJ. They had a nice little team. Number 5 was Home Improvement on ABC. So that means number 6 was Roseanne on ABC, because those follow each other. Number 7, Primetime Live on ABC. 8, Here's Coach on ABC.
Oh.
And then 10th, we have another tie. These are weird. Can't we go like far decimals? But the big battle of Seinfeld on NBC and 60 Minutes on CBS. So there you go. That's our news. And we will go from there to What's Love Got to Do with It.
She wanted love.
I'm trying to help.
He wanted control.
You trying to help Mike?
She had taken them to the top. He pushed her to the edge.
Take your hands off of me.
That's when she found the courage to fight back.
You're going to walk out of here with nothing.
Except my name.
Touchstone Pictures presents a story of courage and triumph. The true life story of Tina Turner. What's Love Got to Do with It? Rated R. Starts Friday, June 11th in select cities. Check newspaper for showtimes.
Got to do with it.
Got to do with it. Directed by Brian Gibson, written by Kate Lanier, on the book I, Tina by Tina Turner and Kurt Loder, MTV News. You hear it first. Starring Angela Bassett, Lawrence Fishburne, Ravine Kelly, Virginia Capers, Chi McBride, Sherman Augustus, Candy Alexander, Penny Johnson-Gerald, and Shavar Ross.
Jennifer Lewis on there too.
Jennifer Lewis. The story of singer Tina Turner's rise to stardom and how she gained the courage to break free from her abusive husband, Ike Turner. Scott, what's love got to do with it?
This is one I had not seen in 30 years. give or take. I did not see it in theaters. I saw it pretty quickly when it came out on VHS. And it still holds up. Obviously, I think some of the impact 30 years ago was how fresh and exciting it felt for it felt like an of the moment biopic. It in terms of how it was made, in terms of the visual razzle dazzle and the intensity and what have you. And of course, it's anchored by 2 spectacular Oscar-nominated performances. And watching it in retrospect, it does feel like, okay, this is, in a skewed way, it's almost the birth of what we consider the modern musical biopic. That may be slightly hyperbolic, but
that's very hyperbolic.
But well, in terms of, it feels on a different level than the Buddy Holly story. How about that?
Buddy Holly, Great Balls of Fire.
That being said,
Bamba, you can name a bunch of biopics that have all done this.
But I mean, in terms of just the electricity and the energy that this one has, and I like La Bamba quite a bit. I loved it when I was 7 years old.
Yeah,
actually, on the soundtrack. But 30 years later, the film is still a very good biopic. Historical accuracy, regardless. I'm not using it for a book report, so I don't care. That is still anchored by 2 spectacular star-making performances. Lawrence Fishburne was obviously he wasn't a breakout role, but it certainly put him on a different plane in terms of awareness. And I think most of the huzzas that were given in 1993 still hold up today. It's a terrific old school trusty studio programmer. It's a solid musically centric biopic, and it's just a damn good movie. And it reminds you at the end that What's Love Got to Do With It is a fucking great song.
There's some other bangers in here, of course, but yeah, true.
Oh yeah,
she builds to that song. Yes.
And that was the first Tina Turner song I ever heard when I was growing up. Just happenstance of how old I was, and it was making the rotations.
Yeah, and the music video with her just walking. It's like an iconic music video, but there's like
walking
nothing.
On a bridge, if I recall.
She's just walking through New York, and there's there's a fence. Stuff. Like there's nothing to it, but it's a pretty iconic video. So, Aaron.
But yeah, I would say it still holds up.
Aaron, what's love got to do with it?
It's got a lot to do with how good the movie is, that's for sure, because the song really does add as far as how it plays a role in the film, which could be said about a lot of the songs, because the film does a great job of utilizing Tina Turner's music. That's a huge part of it, and that's not that could sound like a standard thing to say for a music biopic, but what helps this one stand out in the way that it does, because I do think it's very good, is because there is a sense of like hope and positivity that comes with this story. Given how harsh it is as far as watching basically Ike beat Tina for so much of the runtime, the fact that this is one of those, the arc of this biopic I think stands out because Tina Turner is very much still alive by the end of this movie, and has triumphed over things. It's not this kind of fallow period where everything gets so dark and then like she eventually died of an overdose or something like that. Instead, there's a story of like, no, this is just a woman who gained the confidence that she needed to get away from this terrible person, despite the despite what the collaboration brought them. It's still it's a personal journey for her. What helps is that yes, Angela Bassett and Lawrence Fishburne are amazing in this movie, and they're rightfully nominated for Academy Awards. When it comes to music biopics, you're not seeing, that's a standby as far as the kind of things that get nominated for awards. But when it comes to a movie that has not one, but 2 strong Black lead characters, the fact that it got that acclaim from a summer release, no less, that is impressive. That is something that that just sits in my mind as like, wow, that had to carry for several months with various obstacles in its path, and just show just how strong those performances are, because hey, we're still talking about them at the end of the year. That all adds to what could be a simple formula coming to life in a new coat of paint on top of it. But it stands strong because of the work of the actors, because of how it comes together as a biopic. I know what it win like Golden Globes for best musical comedy because that's how these things work. It's ridiculous. It's just like Scott's been saying. It's a well put together picture as far as what this kind of thing is doing that I do think is elevated specifically by the performances. But there are far more cliche ways to make this kind of thing, which is why I very much get sick of these movies. This is one that does stand strong because of how it's assembled. Who's the director again? It's Brian, what is it?
Brian Gibson. Yeah,
Brian Gibson.
music video guy.
Yeah, he's a music video guy. He doesn't really do much after this, I don't believe, as far as films go. But whatever, the electricity in the air that made this thing work out, it worked out. And I'm very happy about that.
Yeah. We're coming to this one in its middle, like it opened in limited release the week before this, so it would have been last week's episode, and it opens wide the following week. But we're covering it here. We're moving so things aren't so crowded in other places. Brian Gibson, also want to point out, did direct Poltergeist 2: The Other Side, which is a pretty damn good little movie. And what's love got to do with it?
Yeah, it is. I only recently saw it.
Yeah. I think it's a good movie, but it's also like exactly what you're expecting from it to be. And I think, with the reflective, this is always how biopics are, maybe go against it for new people coming to it, because it does follow those things. But what it does have is, to echo you guys, is Lawrence Fishburne and Angela Bassett, who are amazing, and I think elevated above many of those. She's particularly outstanding because there are scenes without words where you're just watching her mind play, and it's amazing. Like there's a scene where Ike, one of the times where he comes to try to like win her back, and you can see in Angela Bassett's face that she's having the biggest struggle not to go back to him, even though it's the right decision. When she I think it's towards the end when she's like finally making the move or whatever, he comes with but like it's just, you could see this internal struggle that's like, damn, what an actor, because she's not saying anything, but I can read so much and I can feel for her and compassionate of that struggle with just that, without the words, without anything. And she
there's a dignity that she brings to most of her roles.
And it's not like a sad, it's not like the sad sap, oh, this woman doesn't know any better type thing. Like you see so much in her that's there. And Lawrence Fishburne's scary as hell, so that helps out.
I know he rejected this role a lot because he didn't want to. He needed more than just. He knew, he was smart enough to know that if
I'm gonna be good at this.
but if I play this role, women are gonna hate me. That was
right.
That was a big part of what was on his mind. It's like, they're gonna hate me for a long time if I play this role.
Right.
So I need something in this script to inform more of who this character is beyond just terrible guy, which they gave him. There's something. You're not it's not the most empathetic role, but I mean, it's still, it has more substance than one would think to a role like this.
Right. And I will say the one thing I was slightly, a little bit disappointed with, it wasn't Bassett or Fishburne or anything, like the music sounded terrific. The actors performed it amazingly, but I wish it was presented to us in a much more interesting way than the movie does, especially when we have a music video director. Like it's kind of standard, traditional. Here's people on stage. Here's an angle. Here's an angle. There's nothing more to the music of it. And then this being a biopic of a musician, I was kind of hoping for more than just some, there's one psychedelic set that's kind of cool. It's just it's based on costumes and set more than it is showcasing us. And there's so many performances that I wanted just to feel like I'm there, or to just get hit with some sort of experience through the song, and it's not. It's just
that's fair.
It's like I'm watching concert highlights. That's kind of it's kind of how that's presented. So if I've got to poke at something with this movie, that's where I'm wanting more from, because of who's directing and because of this being a biopic with such strong music.
Like outside of the Doors, you're not getting a lot of straying from formal kind of presentation of this. That's not an excuse. It's just more of like,
right.
It's like it's when I see it now where it becomes bothersome. Like we just had the Whitney Houston biopic, which I thought was fine, but it doesn't do anything to really go any other direction beyond what you kind of
conversely expect. You get Elvis, which is
a Baz Luhrmann movie.
Baz Luhrmann.
Movie.
Right.
I think Rocket Man certainly played around with the form a little bit in a way that I appreciated.
A little bit. Not as much as their marketing wants you to believe on it, but yeah, it was.
No, I mean, I think I like Rocket Man a lot.
So I was happy with that.
Yeah,
well, exactly. I think I like Rocket Man quite a bit, but I do think a lot of the discourse around that film was as a counter to Bohemian Rhapsody in a way that was kind of silly. But I digress.
I mean, the one that I'll always stand up for is Get On Up, because I think that one does do a lot of things that are interesting and plays with narrative and in structure, and it has a fantastic performance by Chadwick Boseman, but somehow that got just completely overlooked. So whatever.
Right. Yeah. No. But no, it looked. I mean,
ironically, it got crushed on the opening weekend by Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah. And then Boseman was like, "Well, I can't beat them, join them." Right.
Pretty much.
So the movie,
first I gotta do Gods of Egypt.
Right. So looking at that competition here, like that these two were going against for the Oscars, man. It was this is the Tom Hanks Philadelphia. This is him getting one for the first time.
Is it Emma Thompson?
And then Holly Hunter.
Hunter for the piano.
But Emma Thompson was nominated for Remains of the Day.
The year before,
those were both
Howard
like
what I'm thinking of.
Whatever the opposite of bad odds were. I mean, 1-1 or basically. Nobody would have won money betting on Hanks or Holly Hunter that year because they were such surefire, favorites.
Well, I mean
the Oscars in general that year were just, everyone knew that Schindler's List was going to sweep wherever it could. Everyone knew Holly Hunter was going to win. Everybody knew Tom Hanks was going to win. The only surprise, arguably, was Winona Ryder not winning Best Supporting Actress for The Age of Innocence when Anna Paquin for The Piano won instead.
Yeah. But I mean, like,
God help me, I do not remember who won Best Supporting Actor that year.
Well, I was like, for
Tommy Lee Jones.
Yeah, for Fishburne, if you take out Hanks, like, okay, but then he's going still against Daniel Day-Lewis and Anthony Hopkins and Liam Neeson. Like it's
a crazy year. It's of quality.
Yeah, it's stacked. I mean, I would say Bassett's pretty much. I mean, if it's not Holly Hunter, it might be Bassett because. Or Emma Thompson, but you got Deborah Winger in Shatterlands and Stockard Channing as the other ones. Degrees of Separation. But
is Hunter up twice? Is she up in supporting also?
Holly Hunter.
Yes, for the Firm.
Firm.
That's right. Yeah, because Paquin beats her co-star. Yeah,
we'll be discussing in a couple weeks.
Yeah.
And I mean, to make it a performatively obvious point, if Angela Bassett had been white, she probably would have had a half dozen Oscar nominations the next 15 years anyway. So
I mean, yes.
Oh well. Yeah.
Well, and also and nothing. I was fine with Halle Berry, but for when it came to the X-Men thing, it was like Angela Bassett was right there for Storm when it came to I feel like she's always like Angela Bassett's like great. We know she's great, but they always seem to like. And glad she's continued to get work over the years, but always feels like she wasn't given what she should have been all the time. Just
part of fair. I'm pretty sure she's the highest paid actress on television right now because of 911.
Because she's a fucking movie star. That's why.
Yeah. I mean, she's also
she's a movie star on a hit TV show.
Yeah. And she's quite fun. I mean, it's a fun show. It's not art, but it's very good network television.
Because you have her and like Peter Krause, you have good actors doing the work.
Yeah.
That helps.
But
yeah.
Sorry, I'm amused by the discourse around Angela Bassett winning an Oscar for the Black Panther trailers, which isn't entirely inaccurate.
I mean, it's like...
But anyway, Yeah, I mean it's still a terrific picture. I think it's still up. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. Yeah,
that's all I got.
yeah, it's I mean pretty solid. Like I said, like it's well, I mean it's you get what you're expecting with it. It's of the formulaic biopic things, it is one of the better ones, easily.
I guess I mean if there's something to add as far as it is a biopic that's focused on a female artist, and it delves headfirst into the fact that she was abused by her husband.
Yeah,
which is it's not
it
a standard.
surrounds it. Yeah, it
Not a
surrounds
standard
that.
for biopics, which are generally focused on the male singers or what have you, and their substance abuse issues more so than their domestic abuse issues. And so something like that can stand out in its own way.
And there is not a concern, because obviously this didn't happen, but the idea of does the film risk defining Tina Turner by the fact that her husband beat the shit out of her?
And that was certainly Tina Turner's concern with it. That's where I believe her regard for this is that she's begrudgingly okay with it, because she did like Angela Bassett's performance.
Yes,
but like she didn't necessarily want to have a movie about her that would go into something that, yes, she's been outspoken about and certainly wrote about and what have you. But the idea of having a film that is very much going to be talked about for a specific reason, that's a difficult position to be in. So
I mean, terrible analogy, so I apologize in advance, but it's like the idea of JFK being about his assassination. But you're right though, and it's a rare musical biopic with a genuinely happy ending. There aren't very many of those offhand. Again, Rocket Man. I mean, not to sing its praises too much, but that's he's still standing as strong as he ever did, or whatever that lyric is.
Saturday. I think that's how it goes.
Gotcha.
What was that?
Saturday. That's how it goes.
Oh, right.
Okay.
Casey's biggest hits.
Okay, so now it's time for our Casey Kasem top 40. The 10 of his top 40 that week that we have here. This is number 1. It's how it goes. That's the way love goes. Janet Jackson for like the 8th week. Number 2, Week by SWV jumps up 2 spots. Knockin' to Boots by H-Town is number 3 again. Freak Me by Silk falls to number 4. Jumping up to number 5, Rod Stewart, Have I Told You Lately? All right. Number 6, Show Me Love by Robin S. Number 7, Come Undone by Duran Duran. Number 8, What You Gonna Do When They Come For You? The Bad Boys. Inner Circle. Number 9, Looking Through Patient Eyes for PM Dawn. That one's just like constantly hanging in like the 8 to 10 spot. It's never jumping up, never going down. And then lastly, SWV again at number 10, I'm So Into You. And that is the Casey Kasem top 10 here. Rounding out with I'm So Into You, to a movie that I don't think my co-hosts are so into themselves. We're talking about Last Action Hero.
You don't know what fun is yet.
Fasten your seatbelt, please.
Columbia Pictures presents Arnold Schwarzenegger.
To be or not to be?
Last Action Hero.
Not to be.
Rated PG-13. Advanced screening Thursday. Starts Friday everywhere.
Directed by John McTiernan. Written by Shane Black on a story by Zach Penn and Adam Leff. Starring Arnold Schwarzenegger, Austin O'Brien, F. Murray Abraham, Bridget Wilson, Charles Dance, Tom Nunez, Mercedes Ruel, Robert Prosky, Anthony Quinn, Frank McRae, Ian McKellen, and like many celebrity cameos. With the help of a magic ticket, a young movie fan is transported into the fictional world of his favorite action movie character. All right, which one of you wants to rip it first?
It stinks. Oh, you want more? Okay. I saw this when I was 13, so it's not like boo-hoo, I was too old for this. Um, this was actually a lesson in a couple things. First of all, my biggest problem with the film is that the kid is somewhat annoying in a very specific way, and that he is constantly rooting against action. You have a situation with this kid who's this giant fan of Jack Slater, and he ends up in a Jack Slater movie. And instead of being along for the ride and enjoying himself, he spends the entire journey saying, "This isn't real. This isn't real. You should be doing this. No, don't do that. Do this. Do this." And it's constantly nitpicking the movie itself in a weird proto cinema sins kind of way that even as a kid I found very annoying.
Which is weird
And
since
that's
he's such
just
a fan
one.
of this thing. Like it's just, it doesn't it
Yeah.
doesn't help in any way. It makes it.
I mean,
begrudgingly going along on this adventure when it should be have a sense of wonder to it. Like this should be more exciting than it is, and it's not.
Yeah. And the other thing, and I maybe I was too young to understand copyright and IP ownership and all that jazz, but the film kind of teases the idea that you're going to see a shit ton of other characters from other movies and franchises and IP, and then you don't. You basically see one character from one other Jack Slater film. And again, in retrospect, okay, fine. I shouldn't have expected Freddy Krueger to show up. That being said, it's it writes a check that it doesn't even bother trying to cash. The film is very tonally odd, in which this isn't just real world violence versus fantasy violence, but some of the violence is treated very seriously in an almost disturbing kind of way, while some of it is very who gives a shit. That being said, since as Arnold Schwarzenegger is very good in this movie, especially in the third act, where he has to play some notes that we've really, to a certain extent, haven't had to see him play before. And the idea of somebody discovering that their entire life, again, Dark City, Matrix, whatever. It's almost a little ahead of its time in that sense. I can see why the film has garnered somewhat of a reappraisal of the last 30 years, even though I still think as a movie, I find it very flat and unengaging. And I think the big reason is it's at the center of the film. You have a main character who slowly finds out that none of it is real. And you have a secondary main character that should be having fun, but keeps telling him, and by virtue us, to stop having fun. And that just sucks the air right out of the balloon in a way that the film just, it's at least interesting in that middle section when they're running around in the movie, and that should be the highlight of the film because that's what you came to see. In a skewed way, it reminded me of Glass, M. Night Shyamalan's Glass, in which the film sets up these three characters that clearly have superpowers, that are clearly superheroes, and they throw them in an insane asylum where a doctor spends an hour trying to explain to them, no, they're not really superheroes after all. It's like, we know that's not true, and frankly, it doesn't matter, just by the logic of the story. I mean, James McAvoy still eats girls, and Mr. Glass still kills thousands of people, and David Dunn can still bend steel and whatever. So it really doesn't matter why they can do that. It's just they can do that. And it does feel like an attempt to say, Terminator 2 played really well at the young set, even though it's an R-rated movie. We should make something that the kids could enjoy now. And that's not always a bad thing necessarily. I quite like Kindergarten Cop. And for that matter, Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome is fine. But in this case, I think, you sort of lose a lot of what makes the stereotypical 80s, 90s action film such a kick. And I've gone way off topic, so I'm going to let somebody else talk.
Okay, Aaron?
My issues don't go far from where Scott's coming from, so I don't need to reiterate too much. I do think John McTiernan's doing his damnedest to try to make this thing work. I like John McTiernan for the most part. I do think he's a very good action director, and I think when he's in that middle section where it is just a Jack Slater film, the set pieces are interesting at the very least. the problem is that damn kid. I think he's bad in this movie. He's annoying in the ways that Scott's described, and also just as a character. Just like I don't like as a gateway character to getting into this world. As the movie fan that I was a kid, I couldn't relate to this kid just because I don't act like him whatsoever. He seems like just something I have an aversion to as far as what kind of film fan this would be. And so having to follow along with him is just not exciting in the way it could be. Outside of this, the world of Jack Slater is always just not made, like, ever since I was a kid when I saw this in theaters, because I was excited to. Arnold was my guy back then. Like, I grew up with T2. Like, why not see, the new Arnold movie, great. But the world of Jack Slater, there's a fucking cartoon cat in this movie. Like, I don't get what this is, where there's a cartoon cat running around, as well as, evil Jack the Ripper played by Tom Noonan. It's like, so yeah, tonal inconsistency, very much right, because I have no idea what the hell Jack Slater movies are supposed to be. Like, it doesn't register to me in a way that would make sense as a like standard Arnold movie, where it's like, what are these very disparate things going on in this multi-film series? I think whether it's Black or Penn, as far as the script goes, there's obviously like the germs of ideas are here that would go on to become other movies as far as how to do this thing better, because I've seen it be better. But for this movie, whatever the case is, as far as meeting certain demands or thinking this is the right way to go or what have you, it's not as much fun as it could be, because again, I'm annoyed by a lot of it. I think it's weirdly all over the place as far as what it's going for, if it's just its mood or whatnot. Because it's like when the kid first goes in the action movie and there's big explosions, cops are flying over the place, the car chase is loud, like all the music, it's like, okay. And then as it keeps going, it's like there's this weirdly convoluted plot with chants and everything. It's like, okay, or dance, sorry. I just I fail to get more excited by it. And I would think that maybe that'd rectify itself by the end when they go into the real world. And it's like there's something interesting there that somehow manages to have some bits of humor and then some stakes. But it's still like fucking Jack the Ripper is like terrifying. And it's like, this is way too much. Like it feels like it's going far too heavy in certain places when it could scale back a bit and just balance that a little bit more. So it's a movie where I certainly admire what it's trying to do. I think there's a lot of good action in it, and there's a lot of good filmmaking in it. There's some clever stuff going on as far as how to make certain car chases work or certain action beats work in a way that's just the right kind of over the top, where the movie, you get that the movie's commentating on it's satirizing it. But as a whole, just because of the way they're using the story, just doesn't click. It's never clicked for me. And I've certainly tried. I've tried watching this movie plenty of times to be like, this will be the time that I'll get Last Action Hero and realize it's an undersung masterpiece. But no, I'm just not seeing it.
It's not an undersung masterpiece at all. Like I've always, so I'm the one who likes the movie. I saw it in the theater when it came out, opening weekend, and I enjoyed it. But I did see some of the things. I was like, man, the movie got like dark. It was, yeah. I wasn't like expecting like how that, but as a kid, I kind of enjoy that it goes there with that when I was watching it and stuff. But I like a lot of the stupid little meta, like, silly jokes, the in jokes about movies when they go to the video store and they talk about there's the Stallone as the Terminator poster, there's the 555 stuff, everybody's beautiful here. The kid, yeah, but especially when we're spoiled by having Macaulay Culkin introduced to us just a few years earlier,
even Eddie Furlong,
and yeah, there's Furlong.
Yeah. He's much better than T2.
Oh no, he's way better. He's way better than this kid. But like T2, he doesn't hurt the movie at all. So I'll say that. But like, yeah, this kid is, I don't know. I didn't notice all the like he hates being in the action movie. I think he's just trying to get someone to see what's going on with him, and nobody seems to give a shit.
He's a dweeb.
Huh?
He's a dweeb.
He's a dweeb. I like the police station with the shouting boss. It's all the tropes getting played with. And, I watch it. It's like there's some damn good action scenes in this movie. So if you don't like the movie, you're like, man, they wasted a lot of really good pieces on this. Because there's stuff I always like remember, like the fart thing, with that big adventure to stop the death in the body. There's the car chase. There's the fight in the house. Charles Dance is great in this. Like he's eating.
He's the right kind of menacing. He's not like a horror villain that's trapped in this movie.
I like the horror villain. Like it creeped me. It's creepy. It's weird. Tom Noonan's. I love when he's like they're on the red carpet and he's like, "Oh look, it's the Ripper from Jack Slater 3," and he's what are you gonna? I don't think I'm
when it's that, it's like that stuff.
I love that.
I think that stuff is fine. I like because that's playing well with like the format of what's happening. As far as there's a guy that's actually the guy, and his like agent comes or whatever and tries to get. It's like, what are you doing? You should have like that stuff. I think is clever. That is something. But it's like when it's life or death stakes, calling back to like some other movie where his kid dies, and then it's this. It's just it's just so much.
It also tries
after Charles Dance is doing his stuff. It's like this is a lot. This is so much stuff happening right now.
Some of the problem too in the end, it tries to do too much real world stuff where it comes with this finale that's like you should have just got somewhere fucking faster than having the kid hold up the ambulance and then drive like that. It goes a bit far with that. I do like, and this is a aging of the film thing. I'd have never said this back then. Nobody would have, but Arnold's little monologue about being a fiction character in his life and all this stuff to the people, like that plays great in today's climate with legacy sequels and shit like that. Like what people don't realize is like, I want Luke Skywalker back. Well, you have to upend his life again. Like it's called Star Wars, not whatever Star Gardening. You got to upend his life every time. You have to make the worst thing happen to them to have this conflict to go through this adventure. Like I know, like one thing that annoys me, like I consider myself pretty a solid fan of like the Scream movies, but like the fandom of that pissed me off. Like, oh, if they kill like Gail or Dewey in this next one, I'm gonna be pissed. I'm like, what are you you're asking them? Like, you want another Scream? You're trying to ruin their fucking lives. Like,
they better murder like 10 plus people, but not be one of these people.
Yep. Like, do you know what a horror, like a slasher fucking movie? Do you know what stakes are? Do you know what like that stuff is? So like that kind of thing plays really well now. Like when I watched it this time is when I clicked with that. I was like, oh shit, that's some solid stuff. That's not right for that time, but right for this time with it.
As long as a cartoon cat comes in to save the day.
The cartoon cat's Dave DeVito, twins reunion, whatever.
What is that? Hold on. Wait, just toss it aside. It's Danny DeVito. There's an animated animal in the same film series that has Jack the Ripper.
Yeah.
I'm like, don't tell me this.
The world of Slater is wild, man.
I hope there's an animated character.
It's part of why, even if I was a kid, the satire didn't feel legitimate because, again, the kind of films that they're spoofing do not have talking cartoon cats.
Yeah, that's
my problem. The kind of films they're spoofing, quite frankly, don't have the hero's 10-year-old kid get murdered at the end of a movie.
It's probably some
just not.
I think the cat's probably some misconceived Roger Rabbit type, nod that just isn't quite. They don't have the money to do it the whole time because he's in a whole like 2 scenes and one's very background.
That's money wasted.
Yeah.
They didn't need to use that money for that scene.
Right. I mean,
just have David DeVito walk in. Who
doesn't bug me because it's this film's weird, wacky way of parodying things, but it's not much. He does save the day in one scene, but I don't know. I don't know. I have fun with the set pieces. A lot of the silly jokes. Arnold, as you mentioned, is quite good here. Like one thing that's kind of crazy with this movie is you got to make this fake character that's like iconic. So you get Arnold. That's great. That's part of it. But then like they dress him in a way that and have him and play it in a way that like it feels like this. We have this character in real life. Like this is one of our movie characters, which is a tough part to do.
The jacket, boots, red shirt.
Yeah,
like he looks like a yes, a very familiar character to us.
And I think the thing, like there's a thing with
Max
Arnold.
Spader. I mean, it's just such a name.
Yeah, there's a thing with Arnold that Stallone didn't quite have in terms of like accessibility. Like you felt like you liked Arnold and you kind of were like, ooh, I don't know, Stallone, he's a little on it. Like there's like a difference between the two that, you know, Arnold felt like you could get, you know, you could approach him. Stallone, you wouldn't be too sure. Like the movie
Stallone, like,
personas, yeah.
He doesn't play villain besides Death Race, as we established in Spy Kids. Like he doesn't do villains, but there's something in Stallone where, I mean, he's playing in a Goomba right now on TV. I mean, so there's a darkness in him that he puts that into his roles. Like he plays a lot of like, you know, low life type characters. Where Arnold is beyond being the Terminator. I get that. He's still this kind of this weird enigma of charisma, this guy that comes from overseas and lives the American dream and just projects a certain kind of like, I want to be a part of this.
Yeah,
that's why
it looks like he loves being in loves being in movies.
Iron videos.
He's what The Rock wishes he was and is not.
For sure. Yeah.
So, but I don't know. I'm fine with this movie. It's not like I pop this in once a year and like, oh my gosh, and write about how the Last Action Hero is good actually. But I've always liked it.
Sounds like you do though. You basically do.
I do. Yeah, all the time.
Like 3 times so far this year.
I have a steelbook I didn't pay for, so there you go.
Who plays the kid's mother, by the way?
Oh,
Mercedes Rule?
Yeah, Mercedes Rule from
Mercedes Summer.
Mercedes Summer. Hop in your Mercedes, take a ride.
She's back from Neil Simon land. She's coming into The Last Action Hero.
There she is. Yep, an artist. But yeah, no, this was, well, we'll get into it. This was a very high profile, sought after, you know, one of the big movies to see this summer. And
high profile bomb. I think you're dancing around.
Well, I'm trying not to ruin the next.
We'll get there. We'll get to the numbers, the boring numbers.
But
it was established that the movie failed. I mean, like it was
heading into the summer. It was sort of, you know, everybody assumed that it'd be Jurassic Park, Last Action Hero, and The Firm, and 2 out of 3 ain't bad. Yeah, I mean, I think Sony paid for like an advertisement on a space shuttle or something.
Wow.
Which I'm still waiting for Universal to debut the last Fast and Furious trailer on the moon.
Oh, of course.
I have to assume that's next.
I mean, Cameron got a bunch of drones over Niagara Falls, so yes, Vin Diesel really needs to up the game for the next one.
Excuse me.
Maybe on the on that Ferris wheel in London, they can project the movie on that.
I'm sorry, what was that?
They can project the movie on the Millennium Wheel in London.
Oh yes. So yeah, this was considered a huge, because again, it was Schwarzenegger's follow-up to Terminator 2: Judgment Day, which was the 3rd movie ever to crack 500 total.
We hadn't seen him in 2 years. Yeah,
you know, he'd been basically, I mean, he directed his only directorial picture, a television remake of Christmas in Connecticut on TNT.
Well, he did a Tales from the Crypt.
We know drama.
Fair enough. So yeah, and you know, it's an Arnold Schwarzenegger action adventure comedy, and it's safe for kids. And on paper, it looked like a can't miss picture.
What's the line, Brandon, in the movie where he talks about how like there's less deaths in this latest Jack Slater movie? You've seen the movie like 4 times.
Oh yeah.
This year, right? Like what's the line? It's like in the last Jack Slater movie we killed like 45 people.
Yes.
We killed like 35 people. Like it's still like an absurd number,
right?
But it's like lower than the other one.
Yes. Oh, see, there's good lines.
There's plenty of good like bits and lines. Anthony Quinn's doing a thing. I'm all about that in movies. Like there's plenty of stuff in here.
He's got one of those weird pools that's like in the house and outside of the house too.
Which I actually
with a bar and
I've always remembered that. It's because it's like a really unique architectural design.
Yes.
There's that bit where like there's like a bunch of dogs and like Chance does like a thing, Dance does like a thing, and like then all the dogs are like stacked on top of each other.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
Like, it's also weird that this movie's like we're following this kid who's got sucked into the world, but there's also like a B plot that we're also privy to because we're in. It's weird. It's like Lisa's episode where she goes into the future and it has a B plot involving her parents, but it's like, but wait, isn't this from a flash forward from the point of view of Lisa? Why would we be seeing Homer and Marge right now in their own story? This doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, like we have our main character, but like Charles Dance is also a main character.
It's like, wait, perspective is this coming from?
Yeah.
Who's the projectionist? Who plays the projectionist? Who is it? It's it's Prosky, right? Prosky.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, it's him watching the movie and being like, "This kid's in the movie now." This is weird.
He's got the right element to build the wonder for the kid and stuff. He's a good choice there. The magic ticket and everything.
That stuff is it's very corny, but it's fine. Like,
the movie, like, as much as it's not afraid to goof off, it's also not afraid to like do creepy weird things, like that guy breaking into the apartment in the beginning. It's like, whoa, that's
when it's in the real world. Yeah,
it's the real world.
How tough New York is.
Living in modern Blade Runner. That's where he lives. Is modern Blade Runner.
He lives in the Mushroom Kingdom, though.
I have to wonder if this is one of the last like big, like wide release, big budget, epic movies to showcase the like 42nd Street, like slummier looking New York before they clean it up and turn it into like Times Square, Manhattan stuff. Like, this has got to be one of the last relics in a big, grander way of showcasing that.
Yeah, because the aliens blew it all up in Independence Day, then they just cleaned it up. That's what happened.
Exactly. But like, yeah, because when I watched it this time, I'm like, oh, New York's still got that kind of like sleazy feel to the streets with all the theaters on it and stuff, and
it's still Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 1 and not Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2.
yes it is. Yeah, but it's very much like the creepy look in New York rather than Jason Takes Manhattan, New York, or Vancouver, as opposed to what it would become when the makeover happens.
Yeah, Scream 6 is mostly daylight, I assume, and like
sure, everybody's happy,
having a great time jogging down the street. Oh, look, Ghostface!
Go,
Mamma Mia! They're Italian.
The Mario cast came over. Yes,
it's Leguizamo and Samantha Mathis doing a reunion run.
There we go. Yeah, open the door, get on the floor. Everyone walk the dinosaur. But Last Action Hero, we did it. We went through it.
Excuse me, I'm sorry. Excuse me, pardon me. Last Action Hero, I've been dying to see this. I love this place.
Catch the action at the movies, then catch the action at Burger King.
Because when you buy a flame broiled Whopper with large fries and a medium drink, you get this Last Action Hero animated action cup free. Turn that right there. Look at the action in this cup. This movie's gonna be slamming. And so are these cups. So collect all 4. Your way, right away. We love this place.
But before we head on to our final piece, let's once again check in with our good pal Yancy Berns for Yancy's Tales from the Video Store.
I want my video library. I want mine too.
Everyone wants their video library, selling and running Atlanta's most complete selection of general release videos and video accessories. Register each time you come in now till Christmas for the big video library giveaway. A $50 gift certificate every 2 weeks, and the grand prize, a Panasonic VCR to be given away Christmas Eve.
What's love got to do with my video library?
That windsurfer Laserdisc guy who didn't like me, it was very weird because I spent a lot of money at his store, and I also inevitably went and had to sell Laserdiscs at his store when I had to liquidate for money or just to get rid of them because I bought too many. My wife's listening and probably not wanting to hear this. I was 20 years old at the time, and my father had just died, so I spent my money unwisely. But I would buy things from this guy, and then I would go back in and sell him things. And I think he just didn't like the drag of having to buy things for me all the time, so he just never really liked me. And then, strangely enough, I heard later that he sold the store for a good amount of money, and he went to Hawaii, and he bought land, and in the first week he was there, he got killed windsurfing.
Oh.
Yeah, crazy, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks, Yancy. Now, Scott, let's move it over to you and talk about this big box office weekend that wasn't what people were expecting.
Well, after the weekend before, I think so. I mean,
pre-summer.
Pre-summer? Well, no. Yes and no. I mean,
okay.
Okay, Jurassic Park reprised at number 1, dropping a mere 18% in its second weekend, which is insane for an opening that large. It broke the opening weekend record the previous frame with $50 million, and this time dropped just 18% for a $38.5 million weekend for a 120 domestic after 10 days. Coming in I'm sorry?
You think that was like a record second weekend?
Yes. It was. Yes, it was. I think the one prior to that was I want to say Batman with 30 million after a 43 million opening, because it held better than Batman Returns. Number 2 was Last Action Hero, which opened with 15 and change.
Only one step behind.
Which was not a good result. And nobody was happy with it because the reviews were lousy. The audience polling was not great. They knew that the film was not going to have legs. Ironically, coming in just underneath is Sylvester Stallone's Cliffhanger, which earned 5.6 million in its fourth weekend, dropping 25%, ending its 24th day with $59 million.
Go back to Last Action Hero for a second. So that's 15 million. I assume it's what, some like $75 million movie or something like that.
Yeah, 85 officially. Oh, that's depends on who you ask.
And like going into the summer, yes, we're thinking Jurassic Park, that, and whatever Firm are going to be like huge hits.
Yeah,
but was the pre-release, like, there is, when was like the writing on the wall as far as the buzz goes? Like, were reviews out? But we're
a couple weeks out, I think. No, by the time it happened, nobody was surprised. And the nail in the coffin was, of course, Jurassic Park hitting like gangbusters, both commercially, critically, and in terms of, holy shit, this is the movie of the summer.
Where does Action Hero end up?
50 million domestic. Let me see what it did worldwide. 137 worldwide off an $85 million budget. So it was
that tracks Arnold's star appeal alone.
Yeah.
Or something like that, but it's still not a runaway train of a hit. So yeah.
And the irony is, hold on a second. Several months later, Demolition Man, which I think is awesome, would open in October of that year and make $160 million on an under $60 million budget, which isn't that big of a difference. But since Stallone had been on the outs for a few years, and this was considered part of his comeback after along with Cliffhanger, the general narrative for that film's performance was generally positive.
And it's liked more, or at least it's less controversial.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's a much better picture. People liked it.
Even then, like I knew, I mean, the reviews aren't through the moon for that one. It's like we like it as far as it's a crazy action movie, but it's not like the next coming of anything.
Well, yeah, I mean, and to a certain extent, I'm always whining about this a lot, just because I think, back in the day, movies like Demolition Man were not expected to get rave reviews. 3 stars was a pretty damn good result for a movie like Demolition Man.
Exactly.
So it's anyway. Last Action Hero, Giant Bomb, Infamous Turkey. Schwarzenegger basically retreats into a hard R James Cameron action adventure film that would become True Lies.
Infamous Turkey sounds like an Aardman film, but I digress.
True. And yeah, the movie becomes sort of stuff of Hollywood legends, because the original screenplay that Zach Penn wrote is very different from the final film. The original film, yeah. And the fact that he's worked consistently over the last 30 years is because people in the know tend to read the original draft.
Yeah, that's a really great thing for that white guy. He's able to get a lot of money off of making inferior screenplays that are rewritten. What a job.
Writing better screenplays that are rewritten into something else. In this case,
I've heard the notes on his Avengers screenplay before Zach Whedon got came.
That is true. That's
Joss Whedon came in on there.
Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, I mean, it was the definitive bomb of the summer by default. I don't know if it was the biggest money loser just in raw revenue. I'd have to look that up. I'm sure Super Mario Brothers.
I was gonna say, what is Mario Brothers? Like that's
yeah, it's
yeah. Finally, Mario Brothers has the hype of last.
Yeah, exactly. It's a matter of the bigger they are, the harder.
What are you talking? It had Hoskins, Leguizamo,
Hopper.
Hopper, Mathis,
one lady from Broken Arrow.
Richard, what's his name from Do the Right Thing? Richard, Stevens, Fisher Stevens. I mean, I assume the character posters were running wild for Super Mario.
Yes,
right. Someone needs to mock up and make those.
Just those two brothers, just like and like Yoshi, Toad with the harmonica. Remember this? No.
Is there a listener that can make character posters for the Mario? Not the recent one. We already get those character posters, but the 1993 Mario Brothers movie.
We need to make those for sure to come
character
out
posters
with the animated movie ones.
Yes.
That big woman with the necklace.
Well, this will be dropping after, so we'll have to.
Bomb.
Bertha. It's like a.
Lance Henriksen before he gets out of the fungus, so it's just a pile of crap.
And then the other room on the bottom is this summer, trust the fungus.
Yeah,
that's what it needs to say.
That's what all of them should say. Every one of them should have fungus like framing around it.
Oh yeah,
trust the fungus, and everyone just has their own pose. That's the poster right there.
We've been holding this back. We don't. We had Mario material for the other episode. We had too much. It's overflowing here.
By the way, way different topic. We didn't talk at all about Arnold and Hamlet. That's the best part of this movie.
Oh wow. Well, or Ian McKellen's death from
that too. That's also nice.
Yes.
But Arnold as Hamlet, that is legit movie gold.
To be or not to be,
and it's like surprisingly stylish. Like it's like like I'd watch this version of Hamlet. It's as off the wall as Wells or Cohen doing their versions of Shakespeare.
Anyway. Fourth place, What's Love Got to Do with It, which was slowly expanding. It was now in 428 screens. We were earning 3.6 million for a 10-day total of 5.6 million. Number 5, good old Made in America. It's still hanging on after a month.
Solid hit.
Yep, 3.5 million, down 26% for a $35 million 24-day total.
It's the Sword and the Sorcerer Porkies of 93.
Yeah, pretty much so far.
I like how we're rooting for Made in America as if like we're gonna make a difference for reading the stats of this movie. Like, it's gonna do it, guys. Made in America.
Well, I doubt like anybody, they always talk about the top one, top movie of the weekend or like top couple. It wasn't until recent years that people are like, oh yeah, you could be number one and still fail hard,
yeah, I mean, I've always, I've been, one of my big rules is that rank is irrelevant. If the number is good, then it's good whether you're in first place or 10th place.
Like what, like Dickie Roberts got a number one, but it made like nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
John Carter was number one.
And a good movie, so that's what helped there. It's a really solid film.
Yeah. It's better than Last Action Hero. Guilty as Sin at number 6. Also, John Carter's better than Guilty as Sin. $2.7 million, minus 26% in weekend 3 for a $15.7 million 17-day total. Number 7's Dave in its 7th weekend, 2.5 for 55.5. Once Upon a Forest, the other movie that I've already forgotten we talked about. All due respect, if anyone worked on it, I'm sure you were better in other stuff. 2.2 in 1,487 screens. It eventually ends up with a whopping
-$5. What?
Basically, yes.
They lost money.
6.6 million. Which was, if I recall, basically half its budget. Very sad. Menace to Society is
$12 million to make that movie.
Allegedly, I could be mistaken. I should look that up.
They used to pay.
Marines trailer.
They used to pay animators back in the day.
Yeah. Menace to Society, $2 million, 9th place, 16 million after 24 days, and in 10th place, Life with Mikey, earning 1.35 million in its 3rd weekend, 35% drop, $9.3 million.
Goodbye, Life with Mikey. We probably won't see you anymore.
And in its 46th weekend, 15th place, Unforgiven.
Oh,
with $601,000, crossing $100 million.
Ooh.
So go Eastwood.
How many screens did Carnosaur add this weekend?
0.
It's already gone. Wow. Yeah. And that's it. So yeah, that'll do it for this weekend. That was June 18th through 20th of 1993. Scott and Aaron, thank you for joining me. Before we head out, Aaron, what you doing? Where you at?
I host a podcast called Out Now with Aaron and Abe. You can find myself and my friend Abe talking about the weekly movie releases. This is the June weekend, so I don't know, some Pixar movie came out.
I think you're Flash. This is Flash.
It's Flash weekend. Yeah.
I think Flash and a Pixar. They're both scheduled on the same weekend, right?
Elemental, right? That's the
I think so.
Yeah, we talked about one of those, I'm sure, and how there was so much Ezra Miller that we couldn't handle it because
he came back around.
Yeah, he came back around.
Ran around. But yeah, I host that podcast with Abe, and I also write movie reviews for Wheel of Entertainment and Why So Blue, and I'm on Twitter, Aaron's PS4.
All right, and Scott.
I'm at therap.com, and I'm at Twitter at Scott Mendelson.
All right. I'm on Twitter and Instagram at Brandon4KUHD. My written work is at whysoblue.com. Next time on the summer of 93 at 30, our House of Cards in Seattle leaves us sleepless because of a certain menace. All that and more as the summer of 93 at 30 continues.
Big Mercedes.
It's the summer of 93 at 30.
Thank you for listening. The Brandon Peters Show is a Creative Zombie Studios production. Produced by Brad Shoemaker and Brandon Peters. Written and edited by Brandon Peters. Announcer vocals by Jessica Alsman. Theme song by Metavari. Web design and show art by Brad Shoemaker with Brandon Peters. All music and clips featured in the episode are property of their respective studios, and no infringement is intended. Additional information on this and other episodes at BrandonPetersShow.com. For any inquiries, press opportunities, or sponsorship, contact mail at BrandonPetersShow.com. The show is available on Apple Music, Spotify, or anywhere podcasts are found.